you're also friends with Travis. We're all part of the Travis.
Those are some good stories. I don't know if I'm going to be able to replicate that, but
You
I'll
have your own
try.
stories. You started a freight broker. You sold it to the Jordan Company back in the day. I'd love to sort of understand when you were building that business and deciding to sell, what prompted you to think timing was right?
So I started a freight brokerage in 2008. I was 25 years old. I raised $750,000. That's it. And so when we think about all this money that's going in now to the industry, I just thought it was good to give some context to how much we had raised. We had approximately, there were 16,000 freight brokerages in the US, and over an 11-year period, we became number 41 with only $750,000. During that time, I also built Logistical Labs, which was the first pricing and modal optimization tool. So why did we sell a freight brokerage? Why didn't we just scale it? Well, in 2015, when you saw the ubiquitous dissemination of the concept of a Uberfied carrier, Uberfied broker, it was very apparent that there was going to be margin compression. And if you looked at margin compression, when we were in the industry, when you were at US Express, it was like 25, 30% margins. Well, fast forward to 2015, they were compressed to about 14 or 15. It was very clear that the margin compression was going to continue over time, and it was going to half and then half again. So the thesis was, could I run a profitable brokerage at 4%? And the answer was no. And so I thought it was the best optimal time in 2018. It was the top of the market. We knew because we were one of the first companies looking at data and structuring data, ingesting data, and using data to create operational leverage. So while Convoy and Uber, the fake brokers that were trying to create operational leverage and never did, we actually achieved it. And it was time to sell.
It's interesting you mentioned with Convoy. It's sort of we know where that ended up in the hands of DAT. But I remember the mid 2015, sort of when we had Trucker Path sort of hopped out, and venture capital sort of discovered it. Convoy, LoadSmart, Transfix, and many many others sort of came and went. The establishment, which I think you at that point would have been a part of the Chicago broker establishment, was very cynical about the success of these businesses. Do you think that evaluation was correct?
Absolutely 100% correct. The market wasn't there. The technology wasn't there yet. There was no LLMs. And I think the Chicago market was correct. What did the advent of Uber Freight and Convoy do? It compressed margins. And so when we think about the beginning of the end of freight brokerage, it was that 2015. When we think about the second beginning of the end of potential, how freight brokerage looks today, we talk about the advent of LLMs. And we're seeing right now a tremendous amount of capital flow into this industry. Capital creates competition. Capital, again, will create margin compression.
Yeah, Sean Dehan, who runs corp dev for Truck Stop, we didn't get to it because we ran out of time, but it told me a stat. He may be in the room, but something like hundreds of millions of dollars have been put into AI modules in the last year to handle freight. It was like $400 million or something. And it's like he's like, there's 10 companies that have raised all this money, and it's just astounding how much money is flowing into these AI. And he goes, these are all seed companies, seed and Series A companies that have raised this money. Do you think that is a bubble? Do you think we'll see all that capital go to arguably a waste, like we could argue that Uber and Convoy and others have sort of experienced?
So fundamentally, our sector has returned at a lesser rate than other sectors. And so that
From a tech standpoint?
from a tech standpoint. There's been unbelievable companies like Samsara, unbelievable returns like Highway. But overall, we've disappointed the industry. And is this a bubble? Yes. Will this bubble create a very different dynamic in the next decade? Yes. Right now, I think a lot of AI companies are actually just consulting companies. that are saying that they're building AI. There's a lot of Flintstoning going on where they're saying they're creating operational leverage, but it might be humans in the background doing it. And so I think really evaluating and assessing where's the operational leverage, how is this improving the actual operation in the brokerage? How is this making the trucking community better? I haven't seen a lot of case studies to prove that yet.
But isn't the, I mean, you could argue the same thing that has happened in every sort of investment class in freight, is that the venture capitalists get drunk on the concept. Hey, we're going to Uberize freight. Yay, let's do it. I mean, back in the 90s when Transplace was sort of born, we're going to .com the logistics industry. And Ben Gordon, who's been around this industry, certainly I remember it, even though I was in my early 20s. The same thing is like there was these iterations of outsiders trying to put capital into the business, and these businesses don't work. However, there is something interesting, and I have a rule, and Dan Lewis was my only exception to the rule. Put that in perspective. That successful founders in freight that build what we'll call breakout companies have always had a founder, at least one, that had more than 4 years of industry experience. And the only company that I could find that had reached that breakout success, and I would even say Ryan Peterson, having worked at Import Genius, deserved sort of the same credit, was Dan Lewis at Convoy, which now we know that rule doesn't work. And so I find that a lot of the money that's being poured into these companies is oftentimes from outsiders that know nothing about how to actually achieve a successful freight company and freight tech company. But if you look at it, Jet McCandless, Andrew Leto, Jordan Graff, these are all founders that worked for years in the industry before they went out and started a freight company. And that's consistent.
Mhm. Deep domain expertise is critical to building a startup in freight tech, period.
But it seems like a lot of the AI stuff, I mean, there are some exceptions. David Bell with Clone Ops is sort of like a case of that. I mean, Happy Robot, I think, is doing an amazing job. I don't believe that they have the founding, but they did have advisors, early advisors that from the logistics. So hopefully that will help them to get to the path. But it's still an interesting phenomenon how nuanced this industry is and how hard it is to build a startup.
Do you think that changes with AI? That
No.
will be
No, because ultimately this is a relationship business that's nuanced. And I've been around this industry my entire life. And I think there are no new ideas. Let's be honest. There's never, and this is the case of every technology evolution, is like founders get excited because they think the idea is new, but there's probably 50 founders that have thought about the same thing. But what differentiates the successful founders versus the unsuccessful founders is that they have the access to the network. They know who to call. They know who to hire as employees. They know who to hire as advisors. When Michael Caney was building out the highway sales team, he just went and hired a bunch of sonar people. When Travis was building out his team, he hired a bunch of sonar people. I'm not saying that anyone should go hiring more sonar people, to be clear, but they knew where to hire. And you see this also in people like Matt Pyatt when he was building Arrive. Now, there won't be a tech company. Jet McCandless hired people. It just strikes me that when you come from an industry, you have the access. And an industry is weird and as nuanced as freight. And even our own, when I hire an executive from the outside, it takes them 3 to 4 years to get it. And I don't see how AI changes any of that. I think AI, and look, I'd love to hear your take on this, but AI in the right hands can actually do tremendous things. But AI left to someone from outside the industry, I don't see how that's going to make a difference.
People, process, function, platform. And we think about, where does AI sit in the platform? Where does it sit in the process? Is it a function? Does it remove different processes? Does it replace different processes? And I think we're all trying to figure that out as a community.
But isn't it commercialization? I mean, isn't the success of freight and freight startups a function of commercialization and how you can build a company and commercialize it?
Yes. And that's why I would argue that AI companies there's only two options for AI companies. One is you build off of another platform, because without data and without distribution, AI companies are going to have challenges. The second would be to create a domain specific language and start ingesting data and start building your own system of record, your own TMS. So I think there's a couple
But
different.
don't you? But you need the data, and you need to know the language and why something exists, right?
You need the data, you need the language, and you need to understand the industry. That said, I think that there are tremendous technologists from outside of the industry that, if partnered with the right domain expert, the right product person, can build something
But
special.
that's the key, the domain expertise. And I like Sonar's hired lots of really smart data scientists, and I've seen this in my own organization, and I see it in other companies. And take the mileage of a truck, and just an example. So PC Miler, which I talked to earlier today, they built like using Google Maps does not work for trucks, but an outsider says a truck should go 65 mile per hour. And if it's 650 miles, that's 10 hours. Anyone in the industry knows that's bullshit. Like you might get there in 11, you might get there under hours of service, but you're not going to be driving 65 miles per hour. There's nuances to this industry that it feels like it doesn't matter. And then who do I call? Because it's still a relationship business. I still think you have to have a human that has experience. I think we are not being replaced as experts. At least I hope. Maybe you're right. Maybe AI replaces us all and we just become dumb agents of AI, but I don't think so.
We're not there yet, but there is a different world that is about to happen over the next decade. And it's scary, it's exciting, it's interesting, but there's no load boards in the future. There's not thousands of people on freight brokerage floors. It will look different. And I think all of us are here today to figure out, how is it going to look different? How do we think about building for today, but also think about 10 years from now? I've always been ahead of building ahead. This is the first time in my career I've been behind. So I was building mobile technology in 2008 before companies. I was building pricing and software before it was a thing. And this is the first time I'm late to the game. And so it's provided an opportunity.
You think you're late?
I think I'm late in the thought that there's been such an immense market grab. We are not late in terms of what we're building. We're building something very special, unique, and different. I think part of that is I've had the benefit of seeing what others are doing, which has been really interesting and also just intellectually stimulating.
Bill Gurley, I believe is Bill Gurley, who said that his number one observation about founders is they always feel like they're late. And he's like, it's oftentimes the opposite, where they're actually early. And their frustration is that they're losing the game because they see all this other stuff, all this other noise. And I don't know. I mean, you're building an AI company, but from where I sit, there's a lot of like half this conference is AI companies, but it doesn't feel like there's real today commercial viable success. Feels for a lot of these technologies feels somewhat fleeting. Would you disagree with that?
It 100% is. Just if you look on the websites, if you look at companies, the lack of case studies, the lack of companies that are willing to say, I have this AI product and it is working tremendously. I am now extremely profitable as a freight broker. I haven't heard that.
I mean, I've been approached by dozens of private equity firms. I know you have as well. I guess
For the roll-up strategy.
I think some your way as well. I've been trying to find a CEO. I've had big tier one private equity firms that have said, Craig, we want to roll up freight brokers and put AI. And they're like, hey, we need to find a CEO. And it's like, okay. There's a lot of people wanting to do that. But it strikes me when a lot of people want to do something that you end up getting a lot of noise, but not necessarily a lot of like success. Like I haven't seen anyone actually pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
Have you?
I have not yet.
You think it's going to happen?
I think this all takes time. I mean, every good technology, let's look at the 2015 class of FreightTech. Where are we 10 years later? Samsara, Motive. These are companies that are pre-IPO or have IPO'd. I think anything takes a substantial amount of time, specifically in freight. You could argue that freight might take 2x longer because of there's so many different players in the industry and so many friction points. And also there's a lot of confused buyers. And I think that's what AI has done.
Samsara and Motive got to scale because of the ELD mandate. I mean, even Keep Trucking, which was the former name for Motive, the only reason it got to the scale was because they had a free electronic log that you could essentially download, and it was an app that was free before the device, and that was how they actually Schwab has given. It tells a story about all the near-death times that they almost had it until they didn't, and it was the ELD mandate, it was that rush to get devices that actually did it. Samsara is the same boat. Is that desire for regulatory compliance is what enabled them to be successful. But I still look at it and say, Repower implemented an AI agent at one point, and for the first couple of months, real progress. And then it was like the drivers figured out it was an AI, and it all of a sudden the gains dropped. And I just wonder, are we in that bubble territory where it feels like we need the technology? And everyone, I feel as a founder, I'm frustrated at my own companies because we need to go faster with AI. Everything, let's do it. But it's like, are we getting the gains when we implement those things? And I just don't know. I don't think we're
So right now there's driver fatigue. Drivers do not want to hear from AI. And so there's AI messaging, there's different modes of communication. So I think AI voice will definitely evolve, but there are thousands of calls that are going out from brokerages a day. I mean, I was in a brokerage. I couldn't believe how many inbound calls I was seeing from drivers. And so I think there's the inbound intake, there's the outbound intake. Craig, like when you walk into a brokerage, there's several brokerages in a walking distance. There are so many people still there.
Oh,
I read
insane.
Trident today just got sued because they had, for overtime. Well, if they had implemented AI applications so that their people could work less, make less calls, maybe that would have been different. And I don't know anything about Trident, but
Chattanooga,
that was
right?
just an example. Yeah.
No, I think it's fair. I mean, even when Convoy started and they talked about the digital matching, Uber Freight started and got digital matching, you hear about the Uberization of these digital apps, and then you walk into a Convoy's office or an Uber's office, and you're like, I am on the floor of Coyote. Like, it operates the same way. And you're like, how the hell, Jeff Silver's favorite conversation is, how the hell are these guys worth as much as they are when they're doing the same damn thing, except they're losing money? And my question is AI just another iteration of that tech?
I would say no. And the difference is the vast amount of money that is going into the development of both data centers, of LLMs, in this pursuit of super intelligence. Step out of freight and just go to Silicon Valley, go to San Francisco. It's a different world that they're talking about. They're not talking about screens. I saw so many screens. I saw so many clicks. The future is not clicks or screens. The future is it's there. The load's booked. The driver knows that he's going to be taken care of because he has an AI assistant.
Okay, I got to ask, Rob, we only have a couple more minutes. 2 questions for you. The load board or load exchange wars has been a topic of conversation in the last couple of days. You said the future, there is no load board.
None.
Are they all fighting for the wrong problem? Are they all fighting the wrong problem?
I'm not at liberty to say. I've always believed in building 5 to 10 years in the future. I think those are fantastic organizations, both of them. And I think load boards will be around, but they're going to look and feel very different in the next iteration.
Is the liquidity gap problem going to be real, or are we going to find that AI doesn't require? Do you need a liquid marketplace in the future?
This is the big question, right? Do you build an exchange? Do you build, I don't want to use this word, but like you tried building a blockchain beta years ago. Was that just too early? Was the technology not there? Are we getting closer to there with stable coins? Are we getting closer to this concept of whether it's AI or blockchain? Is it really just good technology that transacts?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. That was the first question. Second question I have is, you sold Logistical Labs as part of your load deliver deal. Green Screens came and effectively did what Logistical Labs is doing because Logistical Labs provided the rate. Do you regret selling that business as part of the transaction? Do you wish you had held on to the SaaS business?
Absolutely.
What happened to it?
I couldn't, this is any entrepreneurs out here that try to start 2 companies at the same time. It's a great idea until you have to go to sell the companies. Very hard to sell one and keep the other. But that's why I'm back now. because there is something really exciting going on in freight tech. And I know it feels a little late, but when you walk outside and you see all the exciting people looking to make the industry better, that's what gets me going every day.
Robbie, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Craig.
Great conversation. Great observations.